Hey guys, do we have your attention, please?
Chris Brown's here too. He's our newest instructor.
I'm young.
Bob Pierce is our manager. He'll be giving us a few words here in a minute. Let me go through here a few things. First of all, do we have any new people? I don't
Yeah.
know that we do. Yes, Chuck Wornley. There you go.
I'm Chuck Brown. I just moved back to Orange County from Albuquerque, transferring from the Aero Club of
Yeah, we got another new one back here. He's kind of bald, but not quite. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah.
Well, I've just been on a little vacation. I'm not really new. Gavin Harrison. I retired in 2012. I was fairly active in the Aero Club then. Hello there. I saw John Reed walk in. And I've been teaching ROTC over at Hemet High School for the last couple of years, getting used to a new profession. And now I think I'm comfortable enough with that. I'm ready to get back over here and get back into flying.
All right, sounds good. Okay.
Yeah, Gavin came out of the safety office, so that's where his background was.
Any new ratings? Anybody? No? Any experiences you dare tell anyone? Anybody? Okay. The club manager Bob Pierce will be here in a minute, and we're going to talk about mid-air collision avoidance in the local area. Bob.
Okay. Yeah, for those people who showed up tonight and missed last week, welcome to our safety meeting. So, see Mr. Fitch is with us tonight. We got Mr. Youngblood. He's been missing for a while. Mr. Harrison. See who else is fairly new. You're new, and I forgot your name. I'm sorry.
Here you go.
Want to stand up and tell us who you are, please?
Oh, I introduced myself a couple months ago, but my name is Pedro Lopez.
You gotta remember, we're senior citizens.
Yeah, I've been here before. Would have been on
Okay.
once.
My mistake, but that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody met John? Anyway. I'm going to give you some updates here. Got a call from Malcolm today. He's gone through about 5 different tests after he got grounded here. They still haven't found out what's wrong with him, except that he was sick for 3 days and did not eat for 3 days, and then got faint, and then ended up in an automobile accident, unfortunately. So he's got 1 more test to go, and the doctor won't release him. But if nothing happens in 6 months, then he can get reinstated again. So he's kind of up in the air. He says, just tell everybody I won't be here tonight. Fred called me on Sunday morning, and one of our maintenance people that worked over at Flaybob was killed in an automobile accident in Texas. He'd only been home for a few days. Got back from Afghanistan on a TDY, and that was Justin Taylor. So right now we don't have any additional information on what's taken place, but we'll plan on doing a flyby with the airplanes that we have. So 5.6 has got about 0.6 left on that before the 100 hour, and we're going to save that a little bit so we can fly the National Cemetery along with 234 Whiskey Papa. And if 5.7 is available at the particular time for the funeral services, then we'll use that one also. But right now it just looks like we'll have the 2 airplanes. We may have a few people out of San Diego will take and join in for those services. I'm going to cover maintenance.
He's a 336 pilot, in case you didn't mention that.
336?
Yeah, 336 pilot, so there's no way to alt this, and there's an auto accident.
Yeah, very tragic. And it was a tire blowout, so that's all we know. I want to cover maintenance. 15 Foxtrot. We got to work on the battery in the morning. We have a battery. We'll have to replace the battery. We're not sure why the present one went dead, because the one I replaced in that was marked October 14, which should be a new battery. 29 Foxtrot is in for 100 hour. We finished that off today. 5.6 is on a 100 hour annual. And then 5.7, we've got some wiring to do with that one. We found some issues. We got the generator back. We have to find the order out the voltage regulator for that. It's a little bit different than the other aircraft we have, so it doesn't follow the same schematics in regards to electricity. It's kind of like a Bonanza or any other aircraft, and that goes from the generator to a voltage regulator to a bus. But we're not sure if there's a reverse current relay in that. Right now, everything indicates that all we have is just a voltage regulator. I want to cover credit cards because Roger's having some issues with credit cards, and I mention this periodically. Please, 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 if you're not sure about filling out the credit card slip when you rent the airplane and you want to pay your debt to the Aero Club, ask a question, because the 3-digit code on the back of that Visa or that MasterCard has to go in there. The card may not match what Roger has in his database for your dues. Some people use different cards for certain things. So it becomes a hassle. That means we have to stop everything, and especially if he's already tried to put the input into the machine, now we have to cancel it out, and then he has to go look you up, make a phone call, leave a message, and it takes time. So to help out Roger, to help out my time in regards to making things work pretty quickly, be sure and add that 3-digit code, and it goes in the authorization box. It's right next to or just slightly above where the date goes on the credit card slip. So, any other questions? That's all I got. Thank you, Jim.
Anyway, I was going to have some help tonight. I thought maybe, but I guess not. Anyway, I'm going to talk about MACA, which is short for Mid-Air Collision Avoidance. And in Southern California, of course, we've got a lot of congested airspace, if you will. So, one of the most hazardous areas of the world of the aircraft. Now, I've never heard that before, but I guess it's probably true. There's a lot of airspace that is used by big airplanes and little airplanes and all kinds of different airplanes. So we want to learn tonight as much as we can about the airspace system you operate in. Of course, we're in Class C here at March, and we want to know the flight characteristics and departure and arrival routes for those other airplanes that work around here. TCAS, who knows what TCAS is? Yeah, that's what I thought, just several people, okay. Now, they've put this system on the larger airplanes anyway, starting in '93. And the two airplanes, the C-17 and the KC-135 here, well, they have TCAS also. It's an alerting system. If you're transmitting on your transponder and you have mode C, he's going to be able to pick you up and he's going to be able to know where you are and what your altitude is. Okay, that's what TCAS is. So it helps us out because he can pick you up. You can't pick him up because you don't have TCAS, but that's going to help us out anyway. And that altitude, generally speaking, is displayed in plus or minus hundreds of feet from the owned ship for the plane that has this system on. And then when aircraft get within certain parameters, in other words, you get close enough and close enough in altitude, that airplane may get what they call an RA, or resolution advisory. If he gets one, he's got to either climb or descend or turn, whatever that RA tells him to do. The reason for that is if there's the other intruding aircraft also has TCAS, if he tells this airplane to climb, the TCAS on this other airplane is telling him to descend. So if it tells you to climb, you got to climb, and probably right now. Any other questions about TCAS? It's also called Mode S, yeah. So here's our local aircraft, at least the larger ones. Stratotanker, they can go up pretty high altitudes, go pretty fast, and it does have TCAS, so it can pick you up. C-17, same thing. Okay, and it has TCAS. S-16 does not have TCAS, however, he does have air-to-air radar, so I think maybe he can pick you up. These are our airplanes. You can see we're pretty low and altitude-wise and airspeed, of course. And there's 15 Foxtrot down at Hemet. Now we do have, if I can step out a little bit, some customs airplanes too. They operate out here and they use runway 30 like we do also. And then over at Riverside Municipal, they do have some airplanes, Paris Valley, Flaybob. They've got a lot of general aviation aircraft also.
Riverside has jets.
And yeah, that's right.
G5s, a lot of G5s that go in there.
Yeah. Okay, so during the 3-year study of mid-airs, the NTSB determined that most mid-airs were on a pleasure flight with no flight plan filed. Most of them occurred in VFR conditions during daylight, on the weekends, of course. The majority of mid-airs result of faster aircraft overtaking and hitting a slower aircraft. So not only should you look out for airplanes in front of you, maybe I'll look behind you too. And no pilot is immune. It goes from initial solo to 15,000-hour veterans that have had mid-air, so it doesn't rule you out. Vast majority at uncontrolled airports. That's where we go do our landings a lot of times. En route mid-airs below 8,000 and within 25 miles of the airport. And yes, we did have flight instructors on some of those airplanes. About a little over a third of them. So what can we do? We can plan ahead. We can check NOTAMs, find out where their aircraft are operating, perhaps deconflict from special use airspace, MTRs, military training routes. See and avoid, like I said, scan the area ahead of you, and this one also says, recommends you scan behind you if you can do that. I guess to get some mirrors up or something, I don't know. Before executing a climb or a turn or a descent, anything like that, look ahead, look over that direction where you're going. Communicate, broadcast where you're going, what you're doing, what altitude you're at, especially in the vicinity of uncontrolled airports. Use available radar services, I should say. Again, turn on your transponder. Without mode 3 or alpha, however you want to say it, TCAS is ineffective totally. And if you don't have your mode C on, their effectiveness is degraded also. Are you guys hearing me in the back? Thanks.
Yeah. Also, on that great transponder now, is there some change on squatting on the ground now when you're taxiing, I understood, on some airports?
Some airports do have ground radar, and so we've been telling people just go ahead and leave your transponder on when you're taxiing in.
Yeah, that's what some airports do. I guess it's a good habit, just leave it on, taxiing out, taxiing in.
Probably not very many that we operate to. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's bigger level airports, such as I think they have it over in like Ontario Airport over there.
Yeah, they got it over here, places like that.
LAX, you know.
Well, we go to John Wayne too.
Oh, yeah, with John.
Yeah, is that going in the Air Force, Airman's information now or something like that? I thought I saw it somewhere else besides speaking.
I haven't seen it. No, not really, but that's sort of scuttlebutt, I guess. It's word of mouth.
The bigger airports have actually a ground tracking system. So there's airborne tracking for the tower to operate and also ground tracking, because if you get into foggy areas, they want to see where you are. And there's been occasions prior to this in Los Angeles where you were absolutely lost. All you could do is just pull over and stop and wait for a car to come out and hope you can follow him as they take you back to the terminal. And it can get pretty dense. So they put into the ground tracking system, and they're using the radar and the transponder to track you on the ground. So it's just like a little bug, and it tracks you with an ID.
Yeah, I understand that. I was just wondering if it's put out anywhere in the books right now.
It's normally on the ATIS.
If it's mandatory yet or not. If it's, I thought I saw it someplace in the AOPA, one of those twitches that come over the internet.
I know on the airport diagram it has it for the airport. It will say, I think it's like
ADSE or something like that, surveillance use.
I've seen it right on the airport diagram where it says
that's
like
what
operate mode C on all transponders and on all taxiways and runways.
Oh, okay.
So. Be seen, turn on all your lights, including your landing light, even during the day. Help them, people see you, other airplanes. And of course, the big thing is always see and avoid. You're ultimately responsible for looking out there and seeing the other airplane. Okay, to just show you the different airplane. Yeah, most of you guys know this, but we've got a slide here for it. In other words, here's Riverside, just a few miles from us. Flaybob is just north of there. First Valley is just down to the south by the jump zone. French Valley is a little farther down by Murrieta. And we lie within Class C airspace. Riverside does have Class D airspace when the tower is operating.
San Bernardino, same way.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
because they shut down at 8 o'clock.
Flaybob. What else? Paris Valley, uncontrolled. French Valley is uncontrolled also. Okay, and of course, like I said, we're Class C here at March. Class C services and below 5,500, below the, at least down to the surface in the inner core. So, of course, it's mandatory for us to call somebody. We usually call the tower, talk to them. You can talk to March GCA at 133.5. Okay, SoCal provides aircraft separation above the Class C airspace, 134.0. And there are a bunch of aircraft flying around from the different and into the different airports. Okay, I guess I got some more. Yeah, transient heavies include the C-5, some big Boeing aircraft, MD-11s, things like that. Other aircraft utilizing March's pattern coming up here are some Navy airplanes, Marine airplanes, tanking and guard helicopters. Of course, March C-17s, KC-135s, VFR pattern. Their pattern is on the west side, if I can get my pointer to work. And the IFR pattern's out a little farther, and it goes a little farther to the southeast. They're typically at 4,000 feet, so we deconflict some by our pattern, which is on the east side, and we're down at 2,200 feet. Okay.
And those altitudes, just remember, when you're entering and exiting, 2,200 feet, unless you get clearance to exceed that altitude. So if you want to climb out and you're headed either east or west, be sure and ask the tower if you can get an unrestricted climb so you can leave that pattern altitude. It's almost a mandatory fixed altitude. And it's done for safety because of the 135s and C-17s on the west side are fixed at their altitude and they don't want to conflict with us. You're going to get a lot of sheriff's helicopters too, working on the east side, which may conflict with us, so just be aware.
Yeah, I had to land on 3-2 today because there was a helicopter on 3-0. Okay. And again, March Tower, GCA, you should call them when you're back in here. You got to call tower at least from 5 miles, but you can call GCA out to 20 miles. Okay, if you want radar service out that far, then call them up at 133.5. Of course, risk for mid-air collision increases once you leave and you go to some uncontrolled airports and things like that. So be on the lookout, I guess is the word there. And then by knowing the typical traffic patterns and the aircraft breakdowns at those different airports should help you out too, we hope. Now there are some ASOSs you can call on your telephone, call ahead and get the weather, things like that. We know that Flaybob doesn't have any, so you're probably going to have to get the ATIS from Riverside to get the current weather at Flaybob if you're going there. Same with Paris Valley, no ASOS down there either. You're probably going to have to get the ATIS or something, other kind of weather for Paris Valley. What else have I got? Yeah, there's French Valley. A little farther south, they do have AWAS. You can call a number to get ahead to get the weather.
I have a list of all the airports in the area with telephone numbers. If anybody's interested, they can stop in the office and copy down any numbers you want. So I have about 8 or 10 airports with a with a telephone number that you can dial directly for your weather information.
And again, Riverside ASOS or ATES for FLABOT. Now, the parachute drop zone, let's talk about it a little bit. It's just south of here, just a few miles. The West Coast's largest fleet of skydiving, I didn't know that, skydiving aircraft is at Paris Valley. Majority of parachute jumps happen on the weekends between sunrise and sunset, up to 18,000. GCA will generally deconflict you, and you can do it yourself by staying over here on towards Hemet and Lake Paris. Okay, I try to, if I'm on the east side of the 215, I think I'm probably safe from the jump zone. If you have available radio, you can monitor the operations. There'll be somebody in one of those airplanes calling ground control on this, or somebody on the ground. Okay, and if you see where the airport is, that field they jump into is just northwest of there. Another place that has some potential, I guess, is one way of putting it, up at Victorville, Southern California Logistics Airport. And that's where the drones, if you call them, are Predators, where they launch and recover them. These guys also have chase airplanes. So if you see a Predator, look for the chase airplane too. Also be aware that many operations of the Predator, they transfer from the airport here directly up to Edwards in the restricted areas. The C-17s from here also practice tactical maneuvers up there, so be aware of that. And a little bit more about the MQ-1 or the Predator. It operates the same traffic pattern, altitude as fixed wings. So if you go up there, make sure try to do it in hours when the tower is open. They can tell you where the MQ-1s are, I hope. Remember, there's a chase ship behind him about 2 miles and 1,000 feet maybe. And of course, just one MQ-1 in the traffic pattern at a time. But okay, how do I report a mid-air collision? If you find yourself in a mid-air collision and you're still flying, keep flying the airplane, I guess is the one way to put it. Notify ATC as appropriate. If you're in a big airplane, you have TCAS, and you had to maneuver in response to an RA, tell them right away, because you may be at an altitude they're expecting you not to be at. Then write things down, just like anything. If something happens to you in the air, write it down, where you are, what you're doing, what altitude you're at, and all of that stuff. And then upon landing, fill out one of these forms. You can find it on this website. Turn it into the Air Mobility Wing Flight Safety. Okay. I think we probably know all this. Yeah, operations normally occur between 7 in the morning until late at night. 24/7, I guess. Not 24, but anyway. Where's the highest potential of being involved in a mid-air collision? Radar base to final for runway 32. Okay, so try to stay away from that area. The frequency of near mid-airs along the recovery route at runway 32 is probably greater than any other in the March airspace. So where should we fly? Avoid high traffic areas such as final for runway 32. If you're going to try to fly out to an MOA, I don't recommend it.
Can we just touch on the last one here real quick, John?
Yeah.
Operations has called us a few times. They do not want you on the center line for 3-2 when you're coming into the base from the south. They want you to stay sidestep to the east. And that leaves that corridor open for all the heavy traffic. just be aware, sometimes it causes a conflict, even though you may not know there's a conflict, and you haven't really contacted the tower, and yet you're still 10 miles out and you're on the center line for 3-2. Well, that's also the approach in for the heavies. They're out that far. So just stay to the east of that center line. As long as you stay to the east of the center line, they're happy.
By what distance?
Well, definitely more than a mile, right?
There used to be in the summary of airfield restrictions, the last time I looked at the military one, it said you'll remain on center line or east of the 3-2 center line. I think the biggest concern is the jumpers over at Paris, because that's the clearance they'll give you if you head down that way. They say remain east of 215 if you don't have localizer guidance. I looked up that other question someone asked about squawking on the ground too. The aim apparently has changed. It says civil and military transponders will be turned on or normal altitude reporting position prior to moving on the airport surface to ensure the aircraft is visible to ATC surveillance systems. Obviously, they don't have that system here at March. And obviously, if March says squawk standby because you're garbaging up their radar, you would turn it off. But the standard is now, we will turn them on. And I wasn't aware of that either. Now, at work, we always have them on. I work for American, and you know, flying with the commercial airlines, everywhere we go now has a ground radar that I can think of. And so we never turn it off on the ground with the airlines. So I guess the standard for us should be now that we will turn it on before leaving the chocks at the airport. If they ask you to turn it off, then you turn it off. Until they put something in the ATIS saying squawk standby until you're ready for takeoff or something like that. But otherwise, until someone tells us different, we should be squawking while the airplane's moving.
Okay, what's the best way? Of course, we talk about scans. Look right and left, stop every 10 to 15 degrees, look. Remember, traffic conflicts often occur if you're transferring the flight path of another, so always look out for that too. You can also detect other aircraft by communicating with ATC, call the tower, call March GCA, people like that. Okay, there's some web-based MACA resources. I'll just let you look at those. Of course, one is the NOTAMs. Air National Guard has their own site. Okay. NASA, it's a third party between you and the FAA. Some other ones, AOPA, of course. There's some FAA advisory circulars.
Don't forget the NASA reports are always keep you out of trouble reports.
Right.
And it's free.
Gives me attention.
Okay, here's a few others. There's a video on it, of course, from AOPA, Air Safety Foundation. Strategy and tactics. And March does have their own MACA link too, I guess. So if you can look that up. Anybody?
Can I add some stuff to it?
You bet.
All right. Hey, I didn't realize we were going to be talking about MACA today. I'm Bill Alleman. I'm the Chief of Flight Safety. I'm Dave Cody's supervisor. Normally he takes this. He likes coming to his meetings, but he's been deployed to the desert lately. I just had an FAA FAST meeting last week, which was optional for you guys to attend instead of this one. A lot of information, current stuff was shared in that meeting. So I just want to share some of that stuff, some of the high points relevant to MACA with you guys. Talking a lot about TCAS stuff. It was really stressed last week by us here at our flight operations, and we also had the guard guys, the Reaper guys, talking about it. To them, it's a really, really big deal, this TCAS, IFF, and flight following. TCAS is only good if the participant aircraft are squawking, mode 3.8 out there. Mode C it's going to give you the ability to have resolution advisories and traffic out there. If you don't squawk, you're mode C, there's no altitude. The aircraft will probably get like a diamond out there, which doesn't tell you if the other aircraft is at 40,000 feet or if it's on the ground on an airport somewhere. So please, as much as possible, squawk your mode 3A and mode 3C out there. The Air Force, for us, the Heavy guys, the last few years has changed. Our rules also tells us that we squawk as soon as we taxi out, then we squawk all the way to come back to parking. And that's just make it standard. It doesn't matter where we're at. So that includes here at March. The MACA thing, some of those things in there were seems are kind of outdated. I'm in the middle of rewriting the MACA pamphlet. So if you guys have any inputs on it, especially if you're flying around here, please share with me. But you'll see the latest probably will be out here in a few months to do just a regular rewrite on it. If somebody has a question, and say you fly, some Riverside pilot out there and ask you about MACA stuff here from March, you can't remember all stuff. How would you? Anybody have any ideas? What's the easiest way to find this MACA pamphlet out there? Okay.
Actually, we got some in the office.
Right, but from home, everybody's electronic now. Google March Air Force Base. You'll come up with the March public webpage. There was a link down there. I think the one down there is an old one. I believe it's the newer one. It's a little bit different now. But Google had the latest one. That takes you to the March public website. And right on the front page, you'll see like a little sectional picture on it. And that's a link. You click on that and it takes you to the latest MACA pamphlet. I'll have a lot of updated information there.
Except to watch the March.
So this is an
I
old one?
I don't think that's a right one. I can't say for sure, but I don't think it said March on it, the new public website.
Okay.
I know some of the things I saw on the slides were a little bit outdated from a previous rewrite of the MACA pamphlet, but I mean it's pretty close. It's in general information on this thing. The Predator guys, I'm sorry, they're not Predator guys anymore. They're not flying the MQ-1. They're flying the MQ-9 now. The transition to the Reaper. Us in the C-17, we're no longer going over to Victorville. You might find Travis C-17s flying down there once in a while, but we don't go to we don't go to Victorville anymore. We go over to Edwards. That's where the normal trainers are at nighttime, like on Tuesday night and Wednesday nights. We'll be flying from here to Edwards doing all our NVG stuff out there. Those guys who fly from Victorville to Edwards still doing that with the Reaper. There's a possibility sometime in the future they'll be flying out of here, but that's a long ways down the road. The chase aircraft for them will be normally within 1,000 feet of those guys, and it's just a little general aviation aircraft out there. Some of the questions some of the guys are listening with the UAVs is, can they talk to them? Can they talk to you? Yes. The Reapers, UAVs have radios on them. The guy sitting on the ground is talking via satellite uplink to the UAV, and that's relaying from that radio on that UAV out to ATC. So if you call them out there, or you call traffic, or Joshua calls the Reaper pilot, it's just like he's talking right to the UAV. It's the guy sitting there, the way the radio communications work. This sometimes seems to be confusing. You also have the chase pilot out there. When it's out there between, for example, Victorville and Edwards, and he'll make calls if it's necessary. He's basically the eyes of the Predator pilot out there, or the Reaper pilot.
What type of aircraft is that?
It's a Cirrus.
Cirrus,
Okay. They're flying out.
Cirrus 20, 2-seat, special built.
That's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to add. Does anybody have any questions about MACA stuff for us? Nope. All right.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we got most of the information from that pamphlet you're talking about, which I guess we could use an update. Anybody else? Sign up on the sign-up list. We'll see you next month.
Thanks, Jeff.
That's it.